Hello. Today I'll be talking with Tina Figarelli. She is a realistic figurative painter from Chicago, Illinois. She's also an undergrad student at the Northern Illinois University. She also teaches portrait and still life drawing with the Water Street Studios. Hello, Tina. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How about yourself?
Doing very well. I'm excited to talk to you about your work, the paintings, and your process. So, tell me a little bit, how did you become interested in exploring a classical style of painting?
I would say over the years, it probably kind of came up. Originally, I first started drawing when I was in high school. I kind of had an open elective and I didn't really know what to fill it with. And I was like, well, you know what? I'll just try taking an art class. I'll test the waters a little bit. And then I ended up really liking it. So I went a lot into photorealism when I was younger. And I guess that kind of snowballed a little bit into more classical realism, especially since I live in Chicago and that's has the Art Institute. So I definitely went there a lot, and especially the European art section, that's my favorite part of the museum. And I think that just really influenced me in my work.
Was there any particular artist or painting at the museum that really attracted your attention?
I really love William Bouguereau. He's a French artist, and I have his book, and I like love it so much. They have one piece of his at the Art Institute, and it's huge, like it's almost the size of the wall. But seeing it in person was absolutely insane. It was like meeting like a celebrity, basically.
Sure. What do you like about that particular painting?
It's
Can you capture, describe what it was when you saw it that really moved or inspired you?
I would say the way he handles paint, honestly, it does look a bit like a photograph when you look at it from far away. But, once you're actually at the museum, you can really step up close to it and, get within inches and you can actually see the brush marks. And it's just the skill that he has in order to turn the form and make everything look so real and three-dimensional when it's completely made up is it's amazing how he does it, honestly.
Yes. I've experienced a few of his works. They are quite spectacular.
Mhm.
Uh, Tell me a little bit about your own painting process. How do you go about making a particular work, maybe from the beginning to the end? And then maybe talk a little bit about how you might use some of the techniques of the more classical painters, or is there any technique that Bouguereau used that you really enjoy using yourself?
I would say for my process, I definitely learned a lot from my professors at school. Um, so a lot of it comes from research, I would say, but not in a sense where, I'm really delving into too much like data scientific or anything like that. It's more so like looking up pictures or reading books about any sort of topic. Like I have my bookshelf full of resources and references in case I ever were looking for something specific. But I start with writing. I actually have my sketchbook page just so I can show you, and it's literally just full of writing. It's basically just like gibberish, but it starts out in words, and then I kind of start drawing pictures, forms, and if need be, I'll actually go out and like buy supplies and like references. Especially in one of my newest pieces, I used like a bird, which was a real taxidermy bird that I bought. Um, so it kind of starts like that, and um, I start with a drawing and then I move to the painting phase, and I usually do about 2 layers worth of oil paint for the painting until it's finished.
So it sounds like you have kind of a ritual or meditative process in the beginning. Um, do you Do you do a similar type of activity when you're finished with a painting? Do you write or write in response to the work that you have made or the experience of making it?
I do have a like piece of paper, like a small journal that I use just to kind of reflect on what I like about the piece and what I don't like about the piece. Um, there are some times where I finish something and I'm like, okay, well, at least it's done. Like I'm not 100% on it, but I'll put it away. Maybe I'll revisit it in a little bit. But I always like to have them visible, like somewhere either in my studio or in another room, so that way I can kind of the next day go back and look at it and kind of reflect a little bit more on how it ended up.
Sure. Do you find as a person interested in more of a classical technique that it's um, challenging to chat with your peers about it? So I think historically when people go to paint or they're learning to paint, there's kind of two camps. There's the kind of atelier or classical way of painting, and then there's the more contemporary, modern or abstract. Do you find many people that are painting or interested in what you're interested in your work?
I feel like there's definitely um like a niche in relative to my work. Like a lot of contemporary artists that I've seen that I've like had shows with, their work tends to be more abstract or tends to be more not as representational as mine is, which is fine. There's different styles of art. I do feel like realistic artwork kind of has been put on the back burner a little bit in regards to contemporary work. So I really do like the fact that there is kind of like a reemergence of realistic and classical painting, like especially with, like you said, the ateliers and just the classical workshops that are coming back now. I feel like is a nice uh, like look back on the history of painting. Yeah.
Do you have many contemporary friends, female painters that are sharing your same interest?
I would say in my class, because I go to NIU, with Northern Illinois University. It's in DeKalb, and our classes are very small. We have about like 6 students per like painting class and everything, and we all have very distinct styles. But whenever there is kind of like a realistic or another portrait painter in the class, we kind of like stick together and we either work from each other, like we'll paint each other or paint from people we know. So it is kind of nice to have like a little group of people with the same style.
Absolutely. That gives me very fond memories of my painting friends from university.
Yeah.
Uh, so, reading through some of your information, you indicated you have an interest in um, the goddess figure. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, ever since I was young, I really loved I'm not sure if you're familiar with Percy Jackson, like the books, and that was always so interesting to me, the fact that there's like Greek goddesses, Greek gods, Roman, like there's all sorts of different mythological beings that are not only in, Europe or Greece, but also in China, Japan, like everywhere around the world. There's different kinds of forms, and what they stand for and what they mean is really interesting to me. And that is what I like to research. Like I'll kind of just delve on the internet and go to Wikipedia or wherever I can find, just research a bunch about any kind of mythological.
When you're researching, what are you looking for? Just a particular individual or the history behind them?
I would say a little bit of both. I especially like when they have like um, retellings of stories that have happened, in the past. Particularly with there was this one tale. It's called Karen's Obol, which is where in I believe it's Greek mythology they would put coins on your eyes once you passed away, and that would be like your passage to the other side. You know, those 2 coins would be your ticket, basically. So I was working on a piece, relaying that, and it was researching that was absolutely insane because there's so much material on it. It's really interesting though.
Interesting. Yeah, absolutely. There's some really great things in classical literature and history. Um, I know you teach. Tell us a little bit about that. What is your interest in teaching?
So right now I'm teaching at Water Street Studios, which is in Batavia, Illinois, and I was actually just there this morning because we're having a faculty show. So I went there to like drop off my pieces, and so starting in February, I will be teaching a intro to drawing class for a still life for young artists. So they'll be like 12 to 16 years of age, and I'm really looking forward to getting some experience teaching because I would love to teach at a college level in the future once I, you know, finish with school and everything. But I had such great professors in college, and they really just inspired me to be like them and inspire anyone that I can.
Tell us a little bit about the place where you teach. Are there several instructors there? Is it a smaller studio or a larger studio?
So it's actually, I think it's a building from like the 1800s. It's like a warehouse. It used to be like a milling factory or something like that. So there's 2 classrooms, I believe, and then there's also personal studios that you can rent out. So we have resident artists there that work, and they also teach. They have like a clay studio. They have 2 gallery spaces, so it's honestly it's a hidden gem in Illinois. There's not too many art galleries that are outside of Chicago because most likely, Chicago's very contemporary, pretty fancy. So Batavia is a good spot for young artists and teaching artists too.
You have a studio in this space?
I will not. I hope maybe in the future I would. But for now I have this corner.
Sure, sure. Is this particular studio more of a classical organization, more like an atelier, or is there a wide variety of art coming out of it?
There is a wide variety of art. I would say there is a couple of teachers that have more of the atelier style. Um, but compared to like I believe one of the most, you know, known atelier is like Grand Central Atelier in New York. It's kind of a little bit of a mix between contemporary and, really classical.
Um, what what artists over the years have influenced your own work? Do you have any favorite ones or particular artists outside of Bouguereau that you would say are a big influence?
Let's see. The first that come to mind is Jeremy Lipking. He is um a relatively young contemporary artist. He's like extremely like successful, and it's really nice to see a contemporary artist that is like alive and actually getting the recognition that's, he deserves. So I would
Okay.
say Jeremy Lipking is one of them. Alex Venezia, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. He's also a really good contemporary artist. And then also Patricia Watwood is one of my favorites too.
I am not familiar with the three of those, so I will have to do some investigating.
I highly recommend. They are very talented.
How do you convey people that are beginning, maybe some of your students, to really dive into their creativity? How do you do that as a teacher or an artist? How do you inspire others?
Um, I think that inspiration kind of comes from anything that you can kind of take in from the world, like any of your favorite TV shows, any of your favorite books, anything like that. You can really turn into a beautiful painting or drawing if you really want to. For example, I really like birds, and I kind of just took it and ran with it. So a lot of my recent pieces are gonna have um, featuring like bird wings, real birds, like dead birds, or you know. And at first, I was like, "Well, this is kind of weird. I don't really know if I want to be drawing a dead bird. It's very like taboo, I think." But I was like, "You know what? Let me just try it." So I purchased a taxidermy, and I found myself really liking working from life and really liking the subject matter. And I wouldn't have found that out if I hadn't tried it. So one of those things is when I teach, I would like to say, if you have anything that you really, really enjoy, take it, draw it, paint it, see what it turns into, and hopefully you'll keep working with it.
Wonderful. I think that's a really great philosophy. In working with birds, taxidermy or otherwise, is there any particular challenges or something that you discovered along the way that surprised you?
I would say the hardest part, obviously, besides the form of it, is the feathers. That's something that's extremely challenging to work with, especially with charcoal, which is what I usually draw from. And you have to layer it a lot, which is strange because you kind of think that once you use charcoal, you put it down, that's it, you can erase it. But you actually have to use different styles of charcoal, like the HB, or the B, which is like different hardness or softness of the charcoal. And you have to use those like you would layer oil paint, but you would have to, layer them one by one. And then if you want, you can erase, go in with white charcoal. So it's definitely been a learning process, but I can definitely see improvement from when I first started with the bird and then now where I'm at with it.
Wonderful. Yeah, I really enjoyed your charcoal drawings of the birds and the bird wings. I thought they were quite exquisite.
Thank you.
What parting words do you have for maybe a young artist or someone starting out about that path for them?
I would say if you really want to do it, just do it. Don't listen to anyone else. If they ask you what you're either going to school for or what you're going to do with your degree, which is my favorite question that everyone asks me. Um, you know, if you really enjoy it and if you find yourself coming home from like a long day of school or work and you just find yourself wanting to paint or draw, then, just keep at it and eventually you'll get more comfortable with it and you can find out what you want to do with it as you get further along.
Well, Tina, thank you for spending some time with us today. We love to do these videos for our members and other people that engage with the Art Center to give them a little insight into the work that you do and your process as an artist and as a creative. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm excited to see how this all turns out.